All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining this exciting webinar for the month of July. I know it's hot in Europe, cool down a little bit, and I'm also in hot Atlanta, but yep. But we have a great panel discussion today. The topic will be on impressions from APTA and INCOSE conferences recently. So housekeeping items. So we have actually two QR codes showing on the screen. One is our YouTube channel that we have all the past system engineering, TWG webinars on my YouTube channel. Well, that one shows 129 subscribers, and we already have 138 my last check. And then we also have a LinkedIn page and also a LinkedIn group. So you scan that LinkedIn QR code using your phone, and you could bring you directly to our LinkedIn page, and you can search as well on our LinkedIn on the LinkedIn site. So upcoming events, APTA Tech will be next month, and then we have system engineering session which Dale will be one of the co-presenters, for using SE for deployment of technology projects. And then we have a monthly webinar next month as well. It's one day after APTA Tech's last session, but we're still finalizing the topic as well as the one in September. And October will be APTA's Transform conferences in Seattle that we have APTA SE subcommittee meeting there. So today we have exciting, panel of system engineering experts and professionals. So myself, I'm Hoki with IBI Group, and then we have Dale, Derek, Devon, and Marcel. Which they will introduce themselves after this. Well, maybe now. I was not going to show that until we talk to Marcel. Let's see. Let me stop sharing, and then welcome again, and thank you for the panelists to join. Dale, I don't see your camera on, but would you mind introducing yourself and tell us your role in APTA and INCOSE?
Thanks, Hoki. Yeah, so excuse me. So we had the APTA Rail conference in San Diego, and I was blessed with the gift of COVID from one of the social events there, I guess. But it was very, very well attended. You could tell folks were just glad to be out and socializing and meeting and re-meeting folks and reconnecting. So that was, it was definitely that human interface that was desperately needed after 2 years of being locked up. So it was a good, well attended event. The theme that we got out of talking with ourselves and other transit agency folks is the need for some additional guidance, in deploying SE, just making references to the 15288 standard and the, even the ITS handbook. That's all great stuff. It's all good information, the C box full of wonderful knowledge, repository, but we need some very specific, very pragmatic, help for these agencies. One of the themes that kept coming up in conversations, both during and after meetings, was competency and measures of competency, and how can an agency really vet either the people that are coming to work directly for an agency or the consultants. And of course there's CSEP and ESEP and ASEP from INCOSE, and that gives you part of the story. But there were discussions also with regards to, not dissimilar to what the IRSE does, where you actually put like a binder together and you really make a defensible case for a certain level of competency.
All right, so there, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Well, I know you can talk like, for an hour on this one. So, but what was your role in the APTA System Engineering Subcommittee and your role in INCOSE, the TWG?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So co-chair TWG, co-chair Configuration Management Working Group at INCOSE, and current chair of the SE subcommittee at APTA.
Okay, yeah, I will.
I forgot about that, Hoki.
Yeah, yeah, because we have some
I went.
new members,
Yeah.
new attendees that the first time here. So just want to make sure everyone knows in this famous face of Dale Brown. So, okay. All right. Yeah, we'll
Thanks,
go back
Hoki.
to you. I'll go back to you, Dale. And next one will be Derek. Derek Price is with Network Rail Consulting in the UK, and I'll let you introduce yourself and your roles in INCOSE.
Yeah, thanks, Hoki. I have way less jobs to do in INCOSE than Dale does. I don't know how he does it. I'm really proud to be a founder member of the UK Real Interest Group that Bruce has just switched chairs with Matt Gibson. It's really great to see that that's come in and got bedded in with internationally with the TWG and APTA. It really is. My only real proper job in INCOSE, I'm chair of the INCOSE UK Advisory Board, which is an industry forum. So companies pay to be a member of the advisory board, and that gives them a chance to steer the UK priorities. It also provides a really good networking forum. I see what Tim Ferris is also one of the attendees today. He's a former chair of the UK Advisory Board. I'm getting more involved with the UK RIG Rail Interest Group as well. So those are my cozy hats as they stand, Hoki.
Thank you, Derek. And we have Devon McDonnell is with WSP USA as a systems engineer, and I will let you introduce yourself, Devon.
Yes, thank you, Hoki. Yep, I'm a systems engineer with WSP, normally out of the New York, New Jersey offices. I am also less involved than Dale in INCOSE, but just a member of the transportation working group and been active, I guess, about 5 years now in INCOSE, and also was able to attend APTA beforehand, part of the Emerging Leaders program. So very excited to see the whole kind of spectrum of events there this year.
All right, thank you, Devon. And we'll talk about Emerging Leaders program in a minute. And we also have Marcel from the events with, is it Heijmans? Is the IJ pronounced as a Y, Marcel? If I'm
call
correct.
it Heijmans.
Heijmans, okay.
Call it Heijmans. Yeah.
Okay, and yep, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Marcel.
Well, I am a CSAP. I think I can come close to Dale Brown's activities in INCOSE. I'm a co-chair for the Infrastructure Working Group. I'm a co-chair for the Smart Cities Initiative. I'm a chair for the Dutch Model-Based System Engineering Working Group. And I'm also a member for the Configuration Management and Risk Management Group inside INCOSE. And I'm also a special member. I consider myself a special member for the UK RIG. Bruce Elliott introduced me, I think it was back in 2008 for the UK RIG group. And then our relationship goes back to that time.
And
if you want to find more about me, please find my LinkedIn page.
Yep, and we'll also tell you why Marcel is super special in a minute. Yeah. So, all right, let's start with the APTA Rail Conference in June, back in June, which I was there with Devon and Dale. So we start with Dale. So Dale, what are some of the latest achievements and updates on the APTA SE subcommittee, and also there is a guidebook that you're putting together. So what are your the summary of that?
Yeah, so real quick, I guess I dove into it. So excited prematurely. Thank you for keeping me on track, Hoki. Yeah, so we had some good discussions of with regards to basically trying to grab more volunteers. So we're reforming that whole effort. Eugene, who is the new, he replaced Nicole at APTA, and he's going to help us set up a better collaboration site so that it'll be easier for folks to join, either because of the MOU, of course, and INCOSE folks are welcome to join and partake in the either if they just want to do review and approval kind of work on, or if they want to be an author. There's different tasks available depending on everybody's bandwidth. So we want to set that up and make it easy instead of spreadsheets like 1980 technology. We'd like to actually make some good use of the site, and then kind of mirror that if we can with I haven't really explored it any further, but really try to mirror that on the INCOSE site. With the MOU in place, it should be there shouldn't be any IP related issues, but it'd be nice to just make it easier for the volunteers to do their work. And most engineers go into engineering because they want to create something or do something, and it really the focus needs to be on creating some product, getting some output. And that's the same, that's not just INCOSE, that's a significant effort at APTA. That's a goal at APTA to generate materials. And I sort of jumped ahead and started to describe some of the asks that are coming from industry in that regard. So we're pretty excited.
So Dale, you talk about the MOU, the memorandum of understanding. So you tell the audience what's the relationship between INCOSE and APTA?
Yeah, so there's a memorandum of understanding so we can share intellectual property back and forth. It opened the door for even doing some collaboration with, we didn't go this far yet because it gets a bit more involved when you start talking about money and memberships. So we haven't taken it quite that far yet. It mainly is just wrapping itself around a recognition that the two groups can share and collaborate intellectual property. When we produce the first, maybe the first part, like the first guide that comes out, because there'll probably be a series of guides that comes out before it even gets close to being a standard. So best practices guide. So when that first one is available, prior to INCOSE having anything to do with it, it needs to go through the INCOSE technical process. So we'll have to work out some details at that time between, INCOSE legal folks in San Diego and the APTA group in Washington, DC, to make sure the ownership is shared. And so we haven't gone through all that yet, but there's some good models out there because of the INCOSE PMI Alliance that, some of that ground has already been well trodden. So I think, we won't have a lot of trouble. We just haven't done it yet.
Mm-hmm. So is there any activities between INCOSE and PMI yet? So PMI also has, I think has a conference in Chicago, if I'm correct. This is coming up.
Yeah, I'm not up to speed on any of that. I don't know if anybody else on the call is. Maybe we could just get somebody to jump in, but to inform everybody else. But sorry, I don't have the latest on that.
Okay. No, which is completely fine. I think INCOSE and APTA is the main focus right here. So we switch gears to Devon. So Devon, you were in person at APTA Rail, and you also mentioned the Emerging Leaders Program. So can you tell us what the ELP program is about and how this program helped you grow in the transportation and transit industry?
Yes. So prior to the kickoff of the rail conference, there were certain APTA programs that met for several days beforehand. One of them being the Emerging Leaders Program. That program I wasn't previously familiar with, but it was shared to me with folks in my management. And it's a program for emerging professionals in the transportation field. And ideally, I think it's 5 years of experience and to connect with people across the country, and kind of a career development focused and leadership development focused program. There's a really positive experience meeting people from different sectors, myself being, on the more project engineering side, meeting people in operations or people in different aspects of agencies all throughout the country. So really kind of bringing people together to, to really form a broader, stronger network of professionals in the transportation industry to keep up these alliances moving forward, to share information and knowledge as we learn across our journey. And then after that, I attended some of the rail conference. Not sure if you want my thoughts on that yet. Yes, okay, just checking in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was, even though it was the rail conference, I felt, you know, which was very interesting to hear, I felt it was more focused on agency-wide problems, you know, really kind of more operational problems, with a lot of the common themes, you know, managing kind of the after effects of the COVID pandemic, whether it's staffing shortages, hiring, training, safety for the staff. That was a big theme across that, the conference. So heard a lot about that, a lot about agencies' operational challenges, which was very interesting. There's also a lot of excitement, a lot of talk about the new infrastructure bill and how agencies may be using that and what they can be using that spending for. So that was all very interesting to hear. Some things that I'd maybe be critical of the conference was, and I think Dale kind of also mentioned this in his takeaway, was, you know, there's a lot of talk about future plans or future actions that will be taken, but not very much of it is talking about the capability of these agencies to really do these and deliver these projects. You know, I think if we kind of look historically on past projects, not always were they smoothly delivered, and so how do we prevent that in the future? And there didn't really seem to be, at least in my impression, tangible conversations on capturing lessons learned, sharing them across the industry, you know, kind of building up that capacity to successfully deliver these projects and, you know, improve the agency's capabilities. So that was something I would have liked to hear more about. It just seemed more kind of exciting.
Yeah, so it's a perfect leeway to go back to Dale that what are some of the you know, action items resulting from the APTA SE subcommittee and the activities at Rail conference. And also, speaking of next APTA conference, we have an APTA Tech conference that I think Dale, I saw your name on the program. So tell us more about the action items and the presentation that you'll be doing in Denver.
Yeah, so the action items are to, the main one was to get this collaboration site up and running, and then start promoting, looking for volunteers to jump in and form. We had originally formed it. It was actually Dave Springstead's idea. I'm not sure if he's on the call, but back in the day, we formed into 5 sub teams for the whole project. And, one of the sub teams was looking at putting a senior leadership package together, like a promotional kit. There would be training materials that would be another product output. There's the actual standard itself, which, as I mentioned earlier, would probably start life as a group of best practice guides. So we kind of agreed during the conference that we would focus on some of the early life cycle activities, which are the non-cool things that happen well before NTP, or they should, and they're often not funded. And if you look at the bathtub curve in the INCOSE handbook, there's nowhere near even 10% being spent on some of those, those really important systems engineering activities, like, minor things like con ops and system requirements and stakeholder requirements. It's just not being done in a lot of our projects because everybody wants to jump into design. So it is done on some, and it has been done on some. It's not all projects, but we just need to do a better job of seeing the value there. So those are some of the action items, was to get that project reinitiated and get people interested in it after 2 years of sort of people just trying to survive COVID. So that's and part of that is just making it easier for people to participate. So let's please not use 1983 technology to bounce documents back and forth and that sort of thing. So let's use what we've got on both of the websites, both INCOSE and APTA, in a better way. So I think that's coming. Try to have a first meeting on that coming up in in August. It's a bit tough, so I'll use that as my segue for APTA Tech. That was just sprung on me. So Dave Jackson and myself are doing a session there. It'll be a 75-minute session, and we're going to sort of hit a lot of these same topics with a very trying to talk about a practical approach to implementing these IT projects or technology projects, as they're called, because that's kind of the focus of APTA Tech, is more technology things that there's not a lot of procurement or O&M discussions going on like there are at the more generalized APTA conferences. Like Devon had mentioned that there's a lot of sort of agency-wide concerns. If you look at the agency as a broad group of stakeholders, this is very focused on technology, new technology, exciting new stuff, and how does SE fit into the mix? And it's really another branding opportunity to try to get SE in people's minds, both suppliers and agencies.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Dale. So before we switch gears to IS, the International Symposium. So if anyone like to introduce yourself, then you can type your name, your role in INCOSE or APTA or your company. So you can type it in the chat box. So we got a feel of the audience today. So let's switch gears to International Symposium, which was late June in Detroit. So we'll start with Derek, and also Marcel. You can join in if you want it. So do you notice any difference between this International Symposium and the ones before the pandemic? I believe both of you were in person there in Detroit, if I'm correct. So yeah. So how was the audience, and also what was the portion of in-person and hybrid and virtual attendance?
Okay, I'm not sure what the exact split of numbers were for the online and physical participants. From the point of view of a physical attendee, it didn't feel much different. I think the numbers were obviously a bit smaller, but it didn't feel much different. There was still, good numbers in the rooms. I was a little nervous. I hadn't been to a big gathering for nearly 3 years because of COVID, but that quickly faded away. And what I'm always reminded of is, for me personally, the face-to-face discussions and networking and sharing of ideas, for me personally, is always of greater value than some of the content of the papers. Everybody's different, it's not a bad thing, but I always get more value from networking colleagues. And I've been doing some debriefing back in my base company that although the titles of the papers can seem quite abstract to people and not necessarily massively engaging, that belies the amount of interesting discussion and networking that goes on in the infrastructure community and the transit community in a way that doesn't come across. That's my kind of net summary of how it felt. How about you, Marcel?
Thank you, Derek. Well, Dale already mentioned in the chat there was some 600 people live attending and some 350, I guess, virtual. I was a virtual attendee, and I thought it was a pity that not all presentations were available for the virtual attendees. So there were quite a few presentations that were actually worth visiting, but I wasn't able to join them because they were not there for virtual attendees. And I agree with you, Derek. Doing the participation, the live participation is really the add-on for the IS, and that's something that cannot be done virtually. I attended some of the cafes, but it cannot cope with being there in person. Thanks.
Sure. So Derek, were there any INCOSE UK specific gatherings or networking events that you or other UK folks put together?
I think the if you like, the planned networking side, like some of the transportation working group and the infrastructure working group, the spaces available, I think, because of the numbers, and it's the first contact of COVID, there weren't the kind of numbers around. It was more ad hoc. What I would say, there was some really good panel sessions which gave us some key themes for me. I've got a slide to share, Hoki, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. You should share now. Yeah,
Um,
you should have the capability to share. There we go.
yeah, can you see that okay?
Yep.
I think there's always a lot of papers going on, and what I came away with was I learned more than I expected to, but then again I often do. There was a very strong theme on what I call digital transformation. Whatever the different sectors, different topics, it kept cropping up this general journey people and organizations on in terms of digital transformation. I picked up a lot of conversation in the Q&A about what's a true digital twin. You know, people were using the word that's a fake digital twin, that's just a CAD model. And that pricked my ears up, made me listen more closely. There were some good presentations. John Hull did his usual good job of the journey to go on with model-based system engineering and some of the myths and misnomers around that and the importance of tailoring that. There was a good panel on safer complex systems from a UK Royal Academy engineering report, spanning across rail sector, highways and nuclear. Very different sectors, but we wouldn't be surprised to know that very similar themes and challenges with those. Marcel, I don't know if you agree with this. There's clearly a recognition of the importance of the infrastructure sector in system engineering now, maybe in a way there wasn't 10 years ago. But I still find I have some amusing conversations where people who don't work in that sector maybe don't realize the constraints we have and the different types of complexity we face in infrastructure. Sometimes don't understand why it's so hard. And I think Senna did a great paper on return of investment on system engineering, which if you do get a chance to find that or maybe get them to present, I thought that was really good. Mobility as a service was a big theme, although I didn't pick up a strong relationship in understanding of the relationship between automotive mobility as a service and the transportation sector. And the last one was just I learned that we're getting much more closer in terms of asset management as a standard and a framework and the opportunity to get closer to that. That was a quick share of my takeaways from it, Hoki.
Was that your timer, Derek? Yeah, so all right, thank you, thank you, Derek. And before we switch back to Marcel, I'm going to share something on the screen. Yep, so I hope I share the right screen here. You see, do we see the Outstanding Service Award screen? Is that what we see?
Yes.
All right, so well, we have to congratulate Marcel on your outstanding service, to the non-systems engineering community, and yeah. So well, thank you for your service. And were you there in person to accept? Do they have to give you like a trophy or something? And how do you feel about this?
I wasn't there in person, unfortunately, but they sent me a copy of this certificate at home, and I sent in a picture from me. And yes, I feel very honored to receive this Outstanding Service Award. It was a big surprise to me that it was happening to me. So thank you very much for letting me serve you. You made it possible for me to do this.
Well, we are certainly glad to have a rock star in INCOSE, Marcel, and also we have other rock stars, which a few of them in this call. So yeah, beginning with Dale again, and also Devon, and I believe Dennis and Shamara, maybe Allison is also, and Bill. Is it if you're in the call, we have to congratulate you and getting the best paper for this year for needs and requirements definition. So any one of you you'd like to talk about the paper? Yep, and yeah, feel free to do so now.
I think I saw Shamar's name. I'll put her on the spot. I think Allison too. So
Yeah,
let those guys speak up. And Devon, of course. I think we're all on. Weirdly.
don't be shy. Come on, Samara, Allison. I'll let Devon talk about the the best paper.
It's on to you, Devon.
Yeah, find the unmute
No,
button. Yeah.
So I guess to give some background, I mean, you know, we've worked together through the transportation working group, but also through, you know, actual projects. Myself with Allison and Bill and Shamara and Dale as well. And it kind of came up that, you know, we found that especially in transportation, it seems that, you know, systems engineering isn't as developed as, say, other industries, and that, you know, we are often kind of having trouble engaging stakeholders, getting the proper
Looks like we lost.
Have we lost there? I mean, lost Devon. Dale, you can
and
continue.
use
Oh, there we go. We got Devon
my
back.
I
back.
think the next word was going to be engagement. I'm not sure. That's, you said the proper, and then you dropped off, Devon. So
Okay, sorry about that. I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. There's some storms here. But yes, really kind of trying to optimize engagement and to also determine another challenge we talked about was, you know, sometimes there are stakeholders that maybe influence the project beyond their sphere, what their sphere of influence really should be, and how do you manage these kind of conflicting needs and wants of stakeholders in a way that's going to result in the best project. And so that's really kind of what initiated or motivated this project. And we really wanted this to be a tool, I guess, to other systems engineers or, you know, people working on stakeholder engagement about how to identify stakeholders, how to engage them, how to address communication issues with stakeholders, when to revisit their engagement, and, you know, if you are getting conflicting engagement or feedback, how do you kind of weigh that stakeholder's opinion in the design process? If anyone, Shamara, Dale, Bill, want to hop on, add to that.
That was a great synopsis. I'm not sure who else is. I don't know if I'll put. I know Bill and Shamara. I think I saw Dennis's name too.
Yes, Dennis is on.
Was Dennis there?
Dennis, you're on.
Dennis? Yeah, I think I saw Dennis too. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right, we'll go back to Dennis.
It's the old panicking over dead air. Can't be any dead air. We have to have, yeah. So yeah, just great summary, Devon. And you know, the thing that I learned, the biggest takeaway I got from that is that there's actually statistically a certain number of stakeholders that could be actively acting as saboteurs, you know, sometimes passively, but sometimes aggressively, for various, you know, reasons that are as complicated as human beings are as complicated. Everybody responds to their to their reward structure, depending on, you know, how you're rewarded in your day-to-day life. And you know, you kind of need to be aware of that. And a lot of this is really kind of, you know, soft skill stuff that, you know, most of us, being somewhat nerdy, aren't that great at. Maybe, you know, I won't put everybody in the same bucket as me, but I just, you know, you go to these INCOSE conferences or even chapter meetings, and sometimes it's like a high school dance, you know, everybody's just kind of standing around, you know, worried, don't want to engage with other people. So it's probably more important than, especially for us, you know, as being in theory the ultimate communicators, the folks that can break down silos between the disciplines, that we're aware of these you know, human issues that can come up with stakeholders. I'll stop there, and maybe Dennis or Bill or somebody can jump in. I know Bill and Allison had a great case study. Maybe they just want to pick out the highlights from that. Sorry to put you guys on the spot.
No, not at all, Dale. I was waiting for the young ones to speak up, especially Allison and Shamara. Okay. But yeah, I mean, one of the key points that you brought out, Dale, is, you know, the real necessity to have good soft skills, you know, and really knowing how to engage the right resources on a project. We've been using stakeholder engagement and stakeholder analysis, you know, in our, you know, life cycle for ConOp development, system requirement development for well over 10 years now in our organization. And that's the basis of a good project. If you don't have those stakeholders properly identified and know where your influences are and where, you know, the people are who are going to be making the big decisions. But it really starts with the executive levels, and that's how we start, with our engagement, is really understanding from the business executives what's their ultimate goal for these projects. And then we go in and we analyze the business capabilities, and we look at those resources that we need to engage to say, okay, what do we need to do now with your stakeholder needs? Tell us what your needs are in developing a better solution for you, because your business processes needs this new development work to be done. So yeah, soft skills is definitely a very strong attribute you need for good stakeholder engagement. I strongly encourage that organizations work on those resources that need to have that skill set. And I feel that business analysts out there have some of those strong business skills, So, it's not just system engineering, but also business analysts that can do a very good job of that stakeholder engagement.
All right, Derek, I saw you raise your hand. And also, if anyone's not aware, we'll be talking about New York City Transit and MTA here for Bill. So yeah, Derek?
Yeah, hi, Bill. I think that's a great point. There was quite a bit of conversation at the symposium about, if you like, neurodiversity. And, Dale mentioned that some of us being quite geeky, and some of us are actually very introverted, but we managed to pretend and perform like an extrovert. But you raise a good point. It's also important to be comfortable to bring in people who are better at doing the facilitation and the softer side of it, and not just expect us as system engineers to have to do it all. I think it's a great point.
Great. Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, well, Derek, I think you bring up a good point too. I mean, I always tell people that I'm an introvert, but coffee helps. Yeah.
And can you
So
hear me now?
yes, there we
Okay.
go, Addison.
I was
Go
trying to
ahead.
fix my audio. I don't know. It doesn't work on Zoom.
Oh, it's
Anyway.
very clear right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So no, I was just going to follow up on what Bill was saying and Dale. So for our case study that we did for the paper, we were working on a passenger safety project for passenger safety on the platforms and stations. And what we ended up doing was working closely with the safety department. And through the safety department, they brought up the fact that the legal department, has a lot of good information about projects, and they work closely with safety throughout different projects. And so that was really our case study, was the introduction of a new department, a new stakeholder, which was the legal department. And it was great talking to them because they really aren't engaged early in the project. It's usually after the fact, if there's an issue, if somebody gets hurt by the, in the station, on the platform, then they, have more of a role. So they were really interested in the whole process. And so it was beneficial to them because they learned a lot about different projects and new projects coming down the pipeline that maybe they weren't, familiar with. And then we got their perspective on just how, our actions as stakeholders and project developers, impact then their work from a legal perspective. So it was a good exchange back and forth. And it was just really, I think, beneficial for everyone just to have that new face in the room and really, make the introductions and get everybody familiar with the project going forward. So that's what the case study was for the.
And Allison, why don't you speak to how it actually helped the legal tort group that were in real-time litigations on defending the transit agency with incidences that were occurring on the platforms where passengers were getting injured either by, contact on the train when they were, too close to the train, or in the case where they fell off the platform. Speak to that a little bit as well.
Right. So just them, the legal department then just gaining additional knowledge about what systems are currently being deployed and looking at, and, and also their perspective on, why maybe certain safety systems or communication systems are deployed in particular stations based on station layout. New York City Transit, our system is so old. It's not, like a cookie cutter layout. Every station is different. So not every station, you can apply the same projects to. So every station is unique. So it's just, you have to take it on a case by case basis. And that's what they have to look at, is the specific station where an incident occurs, and, why that station might have certain safety parameters set up versus another station, and why, that's their argument then, is it's not all the same throughout the system.
Okay, thank you, Addison. And before we go back to Marcel on some of the smart cities activities at IS, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce Elliott, ex-chair of the INCOSE UK Rail Interest Group. I'm listening to this discussion, particularly as it regards APTA members, with great interest, but a little bit of disappointment. The discussion that we're having about making the case for investing and making a start in systems engineering, it seems to me, and I'd be delighted to be contradicted here, is essentially the same discussion that we've been having for at least 5 years. Are we making progress? Because if not, I think we've got to do something different. If what we're doing at the moment isn't working, then we need to do something. And I have a prejudice on this, if you like, something, but I strongly believe. I meet very, very few people who are true saboteurs in the sense of putting their personal interests first and doing something that they know is going to be disastrous for their employer. I think that's, I mean, maybe it happens, but you know, people shoot innocent strangers, that happens, but these things don't happen very much. And I think most of the people who resist the introduction of systems engineering genuinely believe that it's not going to do any good on their project, maybe on other projects, but not on theirs. And that if we're going to overcome those objections, we have to take them seriously and understand them and help people see things differently. So there we are, 3 questions for you. Are we stuck? If we're stuck, should we do something different? If we're going to do something different, should it start with understanding the objections? I'm interested in the answers.
Any panel members? I mean, well, I would start there is the beginning of this is the collaboration between INCOSE, APTA, and the Project Management Institute. So we have to very excited to see what will come up, you know, to improve the, you know, if there's anything that has been, you know, sticking around and not improving. But let the panel members, you know, chimed in for this one before we switch back to Marcel. Derek?
Yeah, I think Bruce got a good point in that it's important to at least balance understanding the blockers and the reasons why our clients aren't pressing the button, whether they're a project manager or an agency person or a sponsor or even other engineers, because that may sometimes lead to surprises as to which areas of the toolkit they're most interested in. And they may not be the ones we would want to project and sell, if you like. That's my observation.
There, you have any opinions on this one? Well, let's start with Anne.
Anne's got her hands up. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, thanks. One of the areas to piggyback on that we're starting a concerted focus on across all of these groups has been a real emphasis on engaging our executives, on developing executive sponsorship and informing those sponsors. So there's increased awareness by decision makers, which very often helps counteract when there may be some kind of either pushback or reluctance or lack of understanding happening at mid-level management. So an example that I won't go on at length, but I dropped in the chat that I think was missed in recapping, for instance, APTA Rail. We were excitingly able to leverage Mark Wild as the CEO of Crossrail and bring him over from the UK to talk about systems challenges. And that was a keynote. And that plenary session got a lot of very positive feedback and attention. We were able to elevate systems challenges, the kind of industry traditional practices that will need to evolve. And I was able to moderate transit executives from North America, equally exchanging with Mark about those topics.
Fantastic. And yep, also Dale, Devon, any thoughts on this?
Well, I guess it's also a bit of a continuation. Oh, hey, Devon, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, unfortunately, I was not able to attend that session, but that does sound very interesting. So I'll have to look up the slides or recording of that. Thanks for sharing.
All right. And before we, yeah, Dale, I would let you wrap this up. But for Marcel, yeah, we talked about the smart city activities that were happening in IS, and are there any action items, or what's the summary of those?
Well, we had a call from modelers at the IS. Should I bring up my presentation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right now.
This is the time. Yeah.
Hopefully this will work.
Yep, this is something. Yep, there we go. Yep.
I go very quickly through this presentation because I only want to highlight some things that we discussed. One of the main things that we discussed was the definition of a smart city. It used to be technology based, technology focused, and now it's moving. So we call it a moving target. And it's moving from technology to human centric. That's what we are doing right now. Why are we doing this? Well, this is too quickly. We had some bad examples in the recent past. Some cities are even moving away from being a smart city. They don't know what it really is. They don't want to be associated with the term smart city. Smart city is getting a bad word. So why are we using this new type of model? Well, we found out that just by looking at technology only, this will not solve our problems. And I think that will be the same for transportation. If you just look at apps, and if you just look at technology, it will not solve your transportation problems. So we are currently looking at people who can help us, guiding us with a modeling, with a reference architecture for a smart city, how we can model the city in a way that we can put the human in the center. And we see that our Smart Cities initiative is overarching over many current existing working groups. And I think we have the right people on board of our Smart Cities initiative to reach out to all those working groups that are currently existing. I'm going very quickly through this because the thing that we want to discuss is actually this one. Everybody's talking about big data. Well, we are not interested in big data. We are interested in engineered quality data. And what it means, well, you can read it in this presentation, and I'm more than happy to spread it around. And if you want to see this presentation and want to read it piece by piece and sheet by sheet, just let me know in the chat and I will email it to Hoki. But one thing that we want to make sure of is that engineered quality data is real time, so not too long ago. It must be verifiable, it must be inclusive, it must be uniform, and it must be integratable. And why? Well, we put the human in the center, the human fundamental needs. An economist called Arthur Manfred Max Neef, he's coming from Chile, I guess. And he wrote down a paper, a book, and these are the things that he mentioned in this book. And that's why we came to this goal. The purpose of a smart city is to create and maintain an environment that enables its residents, so that means humans, to satisfy their fundamental needs, well, we say fundamental human needs, by interfacing in fair, mutually beneficial and sustainable ways. And the last part of that sentence, sustainable, well, that comes to this, the global goals by the UN. Which brings me to almost the end of this presentation, and I'm going very quickly, I realize it. And again, stakeholders, Dale already mentioned it. Stakeholders, that's what we are doing it for. And we have beneficiaries and we have service providers. And sometimes beneficiary is also a service provider and vice versa. And we put together a document in which we wrote down all these stakeholders and all these metrics that we are using to measure how smart a city can be. This is the model that we came up with. It's developed by the TWG group. It's a Mongolian group. And in the center, you see the commonly shared goal. And it looks like, yes, it looks like the PDCA circle. Plan, do, check, and act. And if you do not have a commonly shared goal in the center, and that's really in the center, and that's shared, and that's a goal for everybody who has to do something, who has a duty, like residents or the other 27 stakeholders, then it will not function. So what are we doing right now? We are reaching out to the IEC to develop some kind of smart city reference architecture. That group is led by Rael Kopas. We are still working further on the framework and how to demonstrate this framework that we already developed by the TWG group. That's Jennifer Russell is that doing. And we are looking for smart city use cases, and we are still looking for a volunteer to do that. And that's concluding my presentation for now.
Thank you, Marcel. And we're speaking of volunteers. I know, both Marcel and Dale are looking for volunteers to, to help their efforts. Smart City, INCOSE, APTA, you name it. So if you're interested, you can either put your name on the checkbox, or you can send an email to Marcel or Dale. That I will share the emails after this presentation. So Dale, we only have 5 minutes left, so to let you share. I believe you have something to share, and then afterwards we'll open the floor for a few quick questions and discussion.
Yeah, why don't we just open the floor?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think good conversation going. Just one sort of closeout, and trying to get to what Bruce was saying earlier, that it sort of does come back to the human, and actually it was nice, Marcel, a bit of a segue too, the human-centered approach. It gets back to the stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement discussion that we had in our paper and our presentation as well, and Bill and Devon and Allison talked about that. If that's missing and you don't have people motivated, and that can be the folks that are the project management group or the capital programs group, and Anne mentioned that aspect of it with getting senior leadership engaged, because there's a difference between engagement and management, and the word ownership comes in, and that implies an emotional connection where somebody feels that that they own the problem or they own the solution. That gets those passions going. And if you don't have that, or if they're passionate about something else, and unfortunately I have seen several situations where saboteur is a bit of a melodramatic word, but I mean it's accurate. If you go to the dictionary and read the original French origins of it, you get folks that are resisting very, very strongly, to the point where their careers unfortunately don't align with what the project's trying to do, and effectively they become saboteurs. And so that does exist, and the way to deal with that hopefully is through the proper stakeholder engagement techniques, where you actively listen to what they're saying. And there's some wonderful it's too big of a conference to summarize all of it, but there's some fantastic, engagement discussions and present tutorials that went on Saturday and Sunday at IS along those lines, where we're getting more of and that was going to be my big wrap up statement, basically, is that I noticed there was a larger soft skill, or at least I thought anyway, a larger soft skill, human-centered content at IS 2022. Maybe some of that's coinciding with we're all coming out of our COVID 2-year shell and we realized how much we missed each other. I don't know, but that's my summary comment, and then just open it up for questions. Hoki.
Yeah, so I mean, before that, I would like to say, so we got a good group of the current APTA Emerging Leaders Program, classmates that are participants that are here, including Devon and a few of us. So Dale and the panel members, Marcel and Derek, what are your advice to some of the emerging system engineers? Anyone?
I guess, pay attention to the soft skills. That's my quick elevator thing, because you can get wrapped up in pure process stuff, all 30 IS 15288 processes. Don't just get wrapped up in those, entirely. Make a point of learning how to get folks engaged in what you're doing. We've all got to be salespeople to some extent, and I know that's painful, but
internal sales,
sorry,
external
Hoki,
sales. Go ahead, Derek.
Sorry, Hoki, I think I missed what you're asking me then. Apologies for that. I think what I would say is it's for people to keep using this community to validate your ideas, and we can often feel alone in our work as a system engineer, but we're not alone. We've got quite a large community where we test our ideas without fear of being singled out or made to feel wrong. We've all got different challenges. That's my takeaway, I think.
All right, thank you. And Bruce?
It's a different question, Hoki, so if this isn't fit, do stop me. I'm curious, and I know the answer to this question is, well, Bruce, you should have gone to the IS and found out for yourself, but I'm curious to know which US universities are engaged in railway systems engineering. I know that there are strong universities very much engaged in systems engineering as a whole. They advertise in INCOSE publications. But who's engaged in rail systems engineering? I'd be very interested to know.
I know Georgia Tech, just because of the relationship with MARTA. So I'll just speak on behalf of, when I was there, they were quite, interested, and there was students showing up at the agency, and but that's just my own local anecdotal knowledge. That's the question worth answering, though, for sure, Bruce. Yeah, I don't have the answer. Something we could look into as a working group, actually. And
all right, we are at time, but I can get one more question coming in if anyone has. All right, that's silence, but let's go through the chat. So Anne, I know you have you just type it in. Why don't you, if you would like to, you can speak about the advice for emerging leaders.
Sure, just to build on some of the themes that have been emerging, including Bruce's comments, is it will really help us if we can focus on articulating where systems practices deliver value, tailoring and scaling systems implementation to ensure that we're demonstrating value. Because as I often will tell people, there's little incentive to change or do something different, including adopting systems practices, if we can't demonstrate we're making a positive difference. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Anne. And well, this will wrap up this panel discussion. Very engaging, and we have this every third Thursdays each month. Different topics on the webinar. So well, and also thank you to our panel members, panelists, Dale, Derek, Devon, and Marcel. They're very active and in the both APTA Systems Engineering Subcommittee and INCOSE committees. So round of applause to them. If you there's a reaction button, you can still use that. But to wrap this up, this presentation webinar will be available on the YouTube channel in a few days' time. So and there are so many other webinars that we have done in the past few years that is all available for you to review, and there are a lot of good topics there. So until next month, thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, Hoki. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Hoki. Thanks for putting this all together.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.